Interesting matchup in the Big Ten this week. Finds Ohio State taking on Penn State in Happy Valley. This is Tony Sinisi's free pick. The Buckeyes, it's really funny, Tony. We did a radio show this past Monday night, and at the time, we talked about how the Buckeyes had opened a 1.5-point favorite. Late Sunday night, they had become as much as a 2.5-point underdog because people were thinking Braxton Miller might not play in this week's game. And now it's gone back and forth a little bit. Ohio State's been as much as 1 as of Thursday morning. They're a pick 'em as we shoot these videos on Thursday evening. And the bottom line is Urban Meyer says Braxton Miller is going to play. By the way, I wanted to say, first of all, we like to get everything out there on the table. He's a Penn State grad, okay? So there you go. But anyway, I just wanted to say to you as a Penn State grad that, and we talked about this a little bit before we started the show, that Bill O'Brien is doing an unbelievable coaching job. And for those who don't pay attention to it, if he's not considered in Coach of the Year circles at the end of the season, then they should not even have the award. I'm afraid that this university is going to be for some real rough times over about the next 7 or 8 years because they're not going to be able to recruit well. I'm also afraid that O'Brien's going to get a gig that he's just going to have to take because of how good he's done in Happy Valley.
There's not enough superlatives for what he's done at Penn State. He's said the right things. He's done the right things. He's coached this team. It's incredible what he's done with that quarterback, Matt McElwain. If you saw him last year and saw him this year, that's all coaching. And it's just unbelievable what he's done with him. I think the key here is Braxton Miller and his health. But on the Penn State side, they have gotten better every week. And this is a dangerous opponent for Ohio State.
And the thing is about this Ohio State team, when you're prepping for them as a defensive coaching staff, I don't want to be mean here, but unless you're a moron or Bo Pelini, you know what you're in for. It's Braxton Miller, and that's their Ohio State offense. If you can, keep him under wraps for the most part, like UAB did, like California did, you've got a chance to beat these Ohio State Buckeyes. They're not going to beat you with a lot of great skill players right now. And when Urban Meyer, after the first game or two, he said, I'm going to kind of squelch a little bit or hold back Braxton Miller. I want him to not run the football as much as he has been. All of a sudden, not only did Ohio State's numbers start to fall off a little bit for a couple of games, even his passing numbers seem to be disrupted by the fact that he couldn't play his game. They've cut him loose again, and he's had this great run, but he did have the injury last week, so we'll have to see if he's 100% healthy, but he's going to face a really disciplined football, or I should say defensive football team when he faces Penn State in this one.
Well, there's no question. This is the biggest test for Penn State, and from an emotional standpoint, we've talked about it. I mean, can Penn State have any more emotional games than they've already had this year, the first home game, all of that, but this is Penn State's bowl game. Let's face it, they're on sanctions, so they're not going anywhere. They can't win the Big Ten title. This is it. This game right here, though it'll be a TV game, a lot of exposure for it. Ohio State comes in undefeated. They're going to be sky high, and they've done everything right. But I look at the schedule that they've played, and when your signature wins, this is my only concern about Penn State, and believe me, I love everything that they've done, but their signature wins have been Iowa and Northwestern, and that's not exactly Ohio State. So if they do it this week, I'll stamp them legitimate. But Ohio State, Urban Meyer, you got to figure that he's going to find a way to slow down this passing game. But, Penn State's taking chances. If you saw in that Northwestern game when they played, he gambled. Coach O'Brien, on a couple different times, went for it on fourth down. We never would have saw those type of decisions made with Joe Paterno. That's for sure. So, I mean, there's a whole different attitude there. I've not been involved in too many Penn State games this year because I felt it's been so hard to try to handicap everything going around them. This is going to be a tough game. If you put the gun to my head, I probably got to look at Ohio State. Last week, they played as bad of a game as you could play and still found a way to win. And somehow when you see teams play poorly and still find a way to win, that's the sign of there's something special about that team.
Great chemistry is what it usually means also when they're able to find ways to win instead of to lose. But you mentioned something that I was going to say is that Penn State has had 5 wins in a row. They have come against not quite the best competition. At the same time, though, I was going to mention that, Ohio State is about that far away from 5-3 straight up. They're 8-0. They struggled against Cal. They struggled against UAB. How about Indiana? And Nebraska was going up and down in the field on them in Columbus until they started turning the football over. Anyway, this is Tony Sinisi's free pick, the battle between Ohio State and Penn State.
3, 2, 1, go.
This is a game that a month ago I would have loved Ohio State. I think the right number probably a month ago was probably Ohio State 4.5. But these are two teams really going in different directions, I believe. Ohio State, to me, and I have a line-making background, and I believe me, I'm crunching numbers and I look at the numbers, but sometimes you have to look beyond the numbers. And to me, this looks like a fatigued football team. I think they've kind of hit the wall a little bit here. And the other aspect of it is Braxton Miller. Braxton Miller absolutely is the best player on both teams. I read a quote once by Al Davis. He was talking about scouting Joe Namath at Alabama, and he said when Namath came on the field tilted. To me, Braxton Miller is the only person that could tilt the field in this matchup. But I think Braxton Miller is a damaged quarterback right now. He was banged up in the Michigan State game. He's left quite a few games with injuries, and I think the last week's injury was very serious, may have had a concussion. So I don't believe you're getting 100% Braxton Miller here. You're getting a Penn State team that's peaking. I believe Penn State is the side here, and I think Happy Valley is going to be happy this Saturday.
Tony Sinisi, the first to quote Al Davis at pregame.tv. You gotta love it, and I love the line, and you're right on, man. I love it. Anyway, Tony's free pick is the Penn State Nitany Lions in a pick'em situation over the Ohio State Buckeyes. Stick around because all three of us are coming back in just a minute. We're going to next up talk about the battle in Norman between Notre Dame and the Oklahoma Sooners. We'll see if we get any Bud Wilkinson quotes in that one.